what you believe is what everybody else is going to believe. And you've got to really stop and really understand you're not going to get an ROI monetarily right away. It's going to take a lot of time. Do you know that in today's marketing environment, people have to see your brand at least 9 times before they take an action? Action doesn't mean purchase. It really doesn't. Okay? That's when they start to see it and remember your brand. And you've got to be smart by creating a branding, ecosystem. And really, prior to spending heavily on traditional advertising is very, very critical. Engage, engage, engage. That's what they want. They want to know you care about them. And you really have to believe it. You can't go out there and say, I care about them, but when are they going to pick up their goddamn credit card and buy my product, okay? They will know it in your messaging. It comes through all the time. So basically, and I think a lot of people know who David Ogilvy is. He's one of the most famous people in the advertising world, but he said a brand is the intangible sum of a product's attributes. Its name, packaging, and price, its history, its reputation, and the way it's advertised. So you need all of this as a combination in order to succeed today. So basically, the ROI takeaway is, and I will tell you, is strategy, very important. Understand that you need to be evolving every day. It's no longer, this is my strategy for the next 9 months, and let me see what happens, and let me take the next 9 months. It's a day-to-day change for your strategy. You've got to build the brand credibility and trust, very important, and you've got to have the right team to execute. So when people say to me, well, my kids are going to work for me and they're going to execute, do they have the experience? Are they the right team? Are they great collaborators? How are they going to do this? And do you have your operations in line? Do you have your analytics in line? Do you have the whole package to execute? And 99.9999% of the time, they do not. And the smart people will start out by outsourcing it and then really building a team internally. But if you are, just so you know, it takes money to do it and it takes a budget, but you don't have to overspend either. There are ways to really be clever and creative in this. Strategy without execution and execution without strategy is a losing proposition. So it's important that you have both of them. And you also, and all that will create a monetary ROI. So let me just say that what's really critical is that everybody here seems like they're experienced in business, except for the couple students maybe, and maybe they are. And one of the things that I will always tell everybody is that you will have peaks and you will have valleys. And the people who win at the end of the day are the ones when the valleys come, they fight. They're fighters, they're focused. And those are the people that instead of getting depressed, and I'm one of those people that when I have bad things happen in business, I turn to my team and I go, okay, we're gonna really fight through this. And we are going to figure out what we did wrong and how we're going to fix it and how we're going to move forward, or what our clients did wrong, how they're going to fix it and how we move forward. We had this potential client come in today, and he said, we were doing $500,000 a month in business, and the FDA decided with Obamacare to shut down our type of business. They just said, you've got to go out and get 510Ks on this category that never had to have 510Ks. And it was in one day, their whole business shut down. He said almost everybody went out of business in this category but us. And he says, we were really smart, we were really focused, we had enough cash in the bank, we really stuck with it, and it was a horrible time in their life, very horrible time. And today, they're out there doing $1 million a month, a couple years later. So they got themselves back up, and the people who win at the end of the day are those that don't look at those valleys as failures. You've got to look at them as winning opportunities, an opportunity to do better the next time, and to figure out what your mistake was. Don't look at yourself as being infallible, because the point is that stuff happens in life, and you have no control over it, right? And just so you know, if anybody here thinks they're on a trajectory to go like this, delusional, very delusional. So just so you know, and to kind of wrap up what I'm talking about, it's very important to build your brand engagement and your trust with your customer. Number 2, strategy, execution, and understand you are going to have pitfalls, and they will be big pitfalls, whether it's raising money and not getting the money in time, whether it's not being able to pay your staff because things are just not going as well as you thought they were. Every great plan has a little curveball that, that comes your way, you got to work through it if you're an entrepreneur. Even if you're a big business, it happens in big business. That's why they lay people off all the time, change direction. And so all I have to say is that I've been involved in both sides of the fence, and I've never seen anything go like this. It goes like this. And just be prepared. Thanks. Oh, come on, you guys gotta have some questions. Go ahead, Mr. Busby.
Where is all this heading, Nancy? If you look ahead for 5 years, where is branding, ROI, brand trust? What's that evolving into in the next 5 years?
Well, I think that you can't predict 5 years from now. The world used to be, you could predict, Dennis used to tell me when he was in business school, he used to write 25-year business plans. Now you're lucky if you can get through 3 months on a business plan, right? It's actually going to be accurate. But I think that it's going to be much more intimate, and it's going to be a much more intimate relationship between the brand and the consumer. And you're going to have to continually change your message. You're going to have to continually really be involved with the consumer or the business, whatever that is, right? Because again, let me just repeat. Whether you're talking to a buyer or a person at the other end, a supply chain person, no matter who it is, they're still a person. And they still want to be wowed. They want to be wooed. They want to know you care about them. So I think human nature isn't going to change. What's going to change is the acceleration of it. It's going to change, I think.
So do you think there's hope for, let's say, a brand over the last 5 years that's just built a terrible, terrible reputation? Someone comes in to try to change it around. How uphill the struggle is that?
Very uphill. Very uphill. It's going to be it's very difficult because you cannot erase 5 years on Google and Bing. You just can't. It's impossible. Yeah, you.
Okay. So in this day and age in e-commerce and digital branding, SEO plays a very big part. So what would be your top tips for new emerging startups going into business for the first
Were you talking about in SEO specifically?
Yeah.
Research on the keywords. Really researching your, and that's the one thing I forgot to mention on here is the research part of this. It's very, very critical. But really researching the keywords, really understanding who you're going after. And John, do you want to respond? John does the SEO for us. So.
I mean, the thing that's really changed in the paradigm of SEO is you can't just make SEO landing pages anymore. It has to be, in the old days it was easy. You would, pump out all this content that was written by machines or written by somebody in another country and didn't have to worry about it. But it doesn't work that way because people, the search engines are looking out for that. People don't respond. So you have to have great content, and you have to have good writers and good graphic artists and really get that material out there and get it in front of people to read it. I mean, whether that's doing sponsored posts or whether on your guest blogging or signing up for some sort of like content exchange, you just have to make sure that content is good. It's just, people don't take anything, people don't fall for the old tricks that used to be super easy. That's why it's become so difficult.
Okay, and one other thing I just want to mention, I called on John because he's an expert in that area. And the one thing I know, I'm not an expert in that area at all. And when you're building your team, make sure you hire people to your weaknesses, always. Don't hire a lot of use. Okay, you want to make sure you hire people that really are going to, really give you an advantage in the marketplace. I think, was there another question? Or?
How well is the United States adapting to these rapid changes compared to other countries?
I think that, it's really interesting. We deal a lot globally, and I find that there's, Europe in itself is a whole other story about what's happening right now because, there's so many financial issues going on there right now. But I'll tell you the biggest emerging market right now that's going to grow and really be huge for everybody. Does anybody know what it is?
China.
No.
India.
No.
Africa.
Africa is the biggest growing area right now internationally. They actually, there's cell phones for almost every single person in Africa. They do more money transfers to each other using peer-to-peer, and account-to-account money transfers. There's more money being pumped into Africa right now And they are going to evolve, John, faster than anybody because they're so far behind the times. I think we're just accelerating. You know, Dennis and I went probably 30 years ago to a lecture by a guy named Terence McKenna, who actually was a brilliant philosopher, and he put together timelines of the acceleration of how our societies were, and I'll never forget this. And what he did, it was the rise and fall of every civilization, and they all have the same peaks and valleys, and you could see, you know, how they're destroyed and how time gets accelerated so quickly. And how many of you like wake up and you go, I can't believe I'm this age. I can't believe that the year went by so fast, right? And so what's happening is time is accelerating much quicker for us today. So we're going so fast, it's unbelievable today. But Africa, huge. Europe, not so fast. They're not adapting very well at all right now. But each area, and by the way, Japan, going crazy right now. Going crazy on growth right now. So it depends on the country. China, believe it or not, I think you mentioned China, it's not growing as fast as it was because there's so much poverty there. And there's still the majority of the people there are living on $600 a month on government subsidies. And you know, as people go to the factories every day, they're lucky. I mean, I think it's what Dennis made in 1962, right? Your first salary out of, you know. So it's really, there's a lot of poverty there. But there is much more innovation in other parts of the world, and those areas are areas that I would focus on. I mean, we have people that actually have distribution networks in almost every major area in the world. English-speaking countries, much better than non-English speaking, too.
You mentioned, and on your chart, influencers as being a critical factor in this. As recently as this month, the FTC has announced that they are concerned and cracking down on influencers because of the impact because of what the impact is without necessarily a backup. Where do you see that going?
Well, I see that the FTC is desperate right now, and I would say they're very desperate because people aren't spending money on TV and they aren't spending money in certain areas, so they got to get their money somehow. I call the alphabet groups in Washington the extortion racket there, and that's what they really are. But yeah, we went to a lecture at Manat Phelps, and they have a huge advertising division, and one of my really close girlfriends runs their advertising division. And she basically has been to the FTC, and when you're working with influencers, you've got to either have a hashtag that says that it's sponsored, that it's purchased, that it's paid media. You can't get away with it now. What she gave us, and we have 2 huge decks from her in our office that we share with clients, with paying clients, and really what she did is she got the FTC to approve hashtag SPON, S-P-O-N. So the consumer doesn't really, so let's just say you're selling a beauty product, S-P-O-N, you know, beauty. If it's Mars, S-P-O-N Mars, right? So that way, and it can't be in the middle of the paragraph, it has to be at the end or the beginning. There's specific rules, and really they don't really know what they're looking for. They're just looking for anything right now. So it's the wild, wild west for them. So you have to be extra careful, extra cautious, and really cross your T's and dot your I's. And I would always recommend when you're advertising like that you have FTC counsel give you an opinion letter as to what you need to do. That is the best few $100s or couple $1,000s that you'll ever spend for legal, because they go after you personally. You are personally responsible. It's the FTC is very similar to payroll tax, Board of Equalization, stealing money from your investors, and the SEC. And the FTC, they go after you personally. They don't care that you have 4 corporations.
I believe they're about to sue the Kardashians.
Yes, they are.
They have to pull that material
Yeah.
down or mention it's sponsored.
Yeah. Now, when you're small, they're not coming after you. They only care about you when you got a lot of money. They only care about you when you're big.
Could you give a current definition of the word influencers? I mean, I've heard it a number of different ways, but where do you see it now?
Well, an influencer is somebody who actually has a fan base of people that they influence by their recommendation of X amount of people that engage with them on a day-to-day basis. So when we look at influencers, we look at the categories. So let's just say we'll take a beauty line that we have a skincare line, right? So we've gone to some of the big ones, and the ones that have 3 to 5 million influencers that are, you know, we're not gonna spend $10,000 with them. It's just not worth it's not worth anything. And on top of it, they do so much, they are selling so much that you just get lost in the shuffle. So we would like to go after the smaller ones who are growing their business, and you can partner with them as you move along. And what we found is that we get much better monetization because their fans believe them, because they're not hawking every single day something new. So you have to be very careful who you choose as your influencers. And I'm a big believer in influencer parties and events and getting close to them. Look at them as the buyer. You've got to look at them as your buyer. And what can you do? Can you get them to work on commission? Not anymore, you can't. These are huge businesses today. And you've got to really know what you're trying to achieve. What's your vision, what's your goal with them? But you really have to hyper-target on the right people. And through trial and error, you know, we really have our group of tech people, of people in high-end luxury brands, the people, and you know who's, and it doesn't take much to figure out that, you know, this person over here is hawking a new product in your category every day. Why do you want to be there? You know, you want to be the first guy out there with that product, or second or third person. And the smart ones will charge you a little bit more and hawk less product. But it's a science. It really is. And a lot of research, a ton of research out there. And experience too. Experience is really important working with them.
Is, in that same vein, is actors, actresses, or?
100%, 100%. And by the way, here's the difference though. Actors and actresses, they have their people. And the problem is their people, not them. So Eddie's got lots of good friends who are very famous actors and actresses, and he's making deals with them, but they're not going to go to their business managers to talk to their business managers to hawk his product, you know, once it comes to market, and to wear it on their television series because of their relationship, because they have a good relationship. But if you're trying to get an actor, an actress, or a big celebrity to really promote your product, unfortunately, you've got to go through their people. And sometimes it's just not worth it if they're not authentic. If you're paying them to do it and they don't believe in it and they're not authentic, don't bother. Don't waste your money. I mean, I got to tell you something. I see people all the time. I wonder, like, you know, Jessica Alba is a great example. She has her own company. She's really not the president or CEO of her company, but she's a major shareholder. There's a guy who runs the company. They have created a multi-billion-dollar company out of, okay products, but you believe her because she's really passionate about that. She does go there and meet with the engineers.